Anybody object to being recorded? Okay, so
You're not using altars.
yes. You're open to everybody, as I said. Do we have any apologies?
No apologies.
No apologies. We were more worried about the AGM they were. So circulated at some stage were you okay, Julie?
You just tried.
Good. The minutes of the previous AGM, riveting reading, but two people who were present at the last AGM, I'd like to move and second their confirmation. So, Charles and Ray. Any questions or comments about the AGM minutes? Okay, so I'll put the motion for a confirmation minutes. Everybody might like to do that. That's all equal around everybody. Then we've got my annual report. Which to read out to you. First of all, I want to note that the AGM, this AGM is 2 months later than we originally scheduled because of the fact the AEVA organisation now has a much more appropriate and relevant constitution and is a company limited by guarantee. The changes mean that each AEVA branch will now have a director on the National Council with the appointment process now defined by the Constitution with a specified timeline for nominations, which required us to delay our AGM. Our previous AGM for the Tasmanian branch was held on 21 July last year here and online with Zoom. And we elected the executive as follows: Chair, Penny Cocker, Vice Chair, Charles Gregory, Treasurer Clive Atwater, and Secretary Christopher Walkden. A further 5 members were elected to the branch committee, being John Casamatti, Julie Hargraves, Ron Anderson, John Clark, and John Fast. And then some committee member roles were allocated to ease the load on Secretary Christopher, with John Fast having the meeting set up in Zoom job, John Clark and John Casamatti looking at website content, and Charles Gregory looking after Facebook. It was further resolved that Charles Gregory, John Clark, and Penny Cocker would be the 3 AEVA Tas reps to AEVA's National Council. And so I thank again all those persons for their contributions over the last year, and particularly acknowledge all the work done by Secretary Christopher to ensure the successful operation of our branch. We were once again able to have all our meetings as regular meetings, but always with the Zoom option now. We had one in Devonport in November last year and the Launceston one in March this year. We have 125 members currently, which is down by 3 on the previous year, but we also have 618 non-members.
People on the mailing list.
People on the mailing list as well, which is a nice indicator of people being interested to know stuff, even if not interested enough to want to actually join the, whatever reason, not join the association. Now, I always talk about the events that we've been involved in the last 12 or 13, 14 months. But I'll note first, as well as having a large marquee, AEVA Tas now has a large set of excellent banners and posters for displaying at our various events. And I want to give particular thanks to the clever and very patient Julie Hargraves. Nothing like a committee to design things, is there, Julie? Again, many thanks to all the energetic and committed people who contributed to these events undertaken. And I think I've got them all, but anyway, I've got these. Last August, we had, last year, we had an AEVA webinar about batteries. Then we had the Clarence Climate Action Community Expo in September, the Sustainable Living Festival in Launceston in October, the Royal Hobart Show in October, the AEVA National AGM in November. This year we participated in the Motorama at Symonds Plains and then Longford in mid-March. Then there was a Devonport Motor Show that we went to, 27 March. Northwest EcoFest at Camp Clayton on the 9th of April. Top Gear at Stanley, which I think that somebody really enjoyed going to, that was a recollection, 16 April. And then dashing across the other side of the state, there was a Triabunna Electric Hybrid Vehicle Show a day later in April. Then it was Canberra's turn to have the AEVA Conference and Expo, and that was in August. Then more recently, the Snug Electricana, which was like a terrific event for the time that I was able to be there. And last but certainly never least, AgFest at Quercus Park in August. I gather August made things a bit awkward compared to the usual date. I also report usually on the conversion groups, and I'm going to make a terrible pun and say the conversion groups in Launceston and Hobart are just puttering along. I also note that requests for information about conversions continue to be received, as sadly there's still no one interested in setting up a commercial enterprise that I know of. Now, Tasmanian electric vehicle charges, an objective in establishing the Tasmanian branch of AEVA was to encourage the creation of a Tasmanian-wide network of EV chargers. A detailed report was given about at the July meeting of this branch about the progress and developments in this area. I'll just note here that installation of chargers under Tasmanian Government's Charge Smart program and the federal government's ARENA grants is continuing, although more slowly than hoped due to supply chain issues. It's still expected that a comprehensive statewide network of chargers will enable everybody to travel with confidence. No charge anxiety, by phrase, will be in place before the end of 2023. Going on for years now, are two groups that AEVA's represented at, and Clive and I do the representation. Clive represents AEVA Tas on the Tasmanian Government Electric Vehicle Working Group, and I substitute for him when necessary. And I represent AEVA Tas on the Tas Networks Policy and Regulatory Working Group, the goal of which is to contribute to the direction of energy regulatory policy and pricing outcomes in reform in Tasmania. And I just see the amazing amount of work and the hoops that Tas Networks has to jump through to get things approved by the Australian Energy Regulator. Numbers of EVs, according to that website I mentioned a meeting or two ago, there are, as at the end of August, 1,174 electric vehicles in Tasmania, including 2 buses, which I think are the airport buses.
Yeah, I've seen those. Yeah.
And Christopher made a comment somewhere, which I thought was rather perceptive. Wonder if that registration number includes older vehicles which had to be registered before you say they were electric vehicles, like conversions.
It would not.
No. So that is probably at least 100 more could be electric vehicles in Tasmania. Because we're all looking forward to the federal Labor government's introduction of various initiatives which will increase the number of EVs in Australia and the choice of vehicles. In conclusion, it's clear that there is considerable ongoing interest and curiosity in the community. Look at all those events that we participated in about electric vehicles, and AEVA Tas plays an important and very effective role in addressing this demand for information about electric vehicles. And I thank again all the enthusiastic and committed AEVA members for their contributions. Good works, expanding the gospel. And as I do every year, I encourage members to frequently check the AEVA website. It's now actually a nice website to check. And the fabulous Facebook page where all sorts of interesting things get put up, and YouTube reviews and all sorts of things. And the recent photos of the lucky persons who just bought the Atto 3. Looking forward to seeing one of those. So you find lots of interesting things there. And that concludes my annual report. And we need a motion for receipt, please. Midge and Ray. No, I've already got Ray, Midge and John. You've got to share it around. Okay. So now we're going to get the financial reports from Clive. They're in the middle of the screen. Don't forget to unmute Clive. There he is. Oh dear.
I might ask Christopher to display the report if possible. Just yeah. So can we shrink that down so we can see it all at once?
We can see it all at once here.
Ah, well, I cannot.
Oh, sorry. The width. Do you want to scroll down? Is that what you mean?
Yes, that's it. Just so I can see the things. So the last year, I can't see the top. You can't just make it a little smaller. Yeah, all right. So yeah, it's getting clear. That's better. Thank you very much. What's to say? I guess we had an uptick after a couple of years of COVID where we were less active with major events, which was revealed in higher expenditure on events. Unfortunately, however, again, perhaps due to COVID overhangs, we didn't get the attendance and participation at those events, so the revenue did not rise accordingly. We've coped because we've had some income from National, and we haven't called on National for a lot of money over the years. But nonetheless, we had a $2,800 reduction in our loss for the operating loss, which took us from about $3,500 at the end of last financial year down to about $600 at the end of this financial year. I note that that's a financial year amount. There's been a reasonable amount of activity since then, which will be noted in our treasurer's report for this meeting. I would note that amongst our expenditures, a fair bit of that was on capital purchases. So things like high-vis vests, the marquee, and printed matter that we'll continue to use. So our asset base continues to increase. I don't have an asset statement. Perhaps that's something I should introduce. Any questions?
What did the $5,820.26 get spent on? Is it major shows and events? What sort of stuff?
Yeah, so it's fees to AgFest, EcoFest in the Northwest. It's some of the costs associated with that. So for example, the Hobart Show, we had to get a inspector to look at the marquee because it was a requirement of the show. Testing and tagging, electrical goods, all kinds of odds and ends. But the majority of that would be for the site fees.
Are we going to get for the Hobart Show this year? We're going to have similar costs?
No, they're letting us in for free, but there will be some costs associated with getting the marquee inspected again. Much lower than last year. It's zero for the site, just the operating bits and pieces. Tagging and testing, getting the marquee approved. So probably $500 or $600. We should be able to recover that from exhibitors if we get a couple of bike shops, and all of the charge networks are pitching in at $50 a pop, so there's a couple $100 there. So yeah, we should be able to scrape together all the money on the Hobart, and I would hope Launceston shows, as long as we get a few cars turning up as well.
So are we going to need to ask for a share of the national pool?
Already have. They will approve it at the AGM after they've received our financial statement and request, which is as we will approve tonight.
So do we need a motion about how much to ask for?
I put in a request for $2,500 earlier. They basically say they'll top up our bank account, or each state's bank account, to $3,000 at the AGM. So because we're actually gone lower, we might get a full $3,000.
Anybody else want to ask questions or comments? Anybody online? John?
Well, I've been texting, but hopefully you can hear me. Does the membership fees get fed back into the local branch?
No.
No.
All membership fees go to National, and they allocate them across the states as they see it according to need. It doesn't necessarily reflect the size of the membership. And of course, a certain portion of it is used for national events. So we have an annual, well, subject to COVID, have an annual event, which can be income producing, but the pool of national funds is there as a backup in the event that was a bad year. National has the publish, if you look at the annual general meeting of AEVA National, which will occur in a few weeks. The treasurer's report there consolidates all the state reports together and shows the national accounts as well. And National AEVA has reasonably robust finances at the moment. I think they're running around $60,000 or $70,000 balance. Of course, that'll go down when they distribute it to the individual states. So it's there now, but it won't necessarily be there later.
Thanks, Clive.
Anybody else? Okay, the motion for receipt of the treasurer's report, moved by Clive, seconded by Michael Watson. All those in favour of receipt, please indicate. Thank you. Carried as well. Now we need to organise our committees and positions and so on.
I realise I've said that the number of general committee members first, whereas we probably want to figure that out after we figure it out. So if we say, if we get a chair, treasurer, secretary, and then who else wants to be on the committee, then we go back and say that many number. Then we don't have to elect anybody. That makes sense. Okay, so we start there.
So, you should invite Penny Watson to be the returning officer.
According to this, we only need to nominate a returning officer if we get more than one person nominated.
Okay.
And then we have to decide, it can be anybody as long as they're not one of the ones nominated. So don't say Penny yet, because she might be.
It's true. Chris has read all the rules properly. Right, well, so I just call for nominations. I guess I'll start with the chairperson nominee first. Okay. Are there nominations for chair of the Tasmanian branch?
Who wants to nominate Penny for chair?
There I was trying to do some succession plans. I accept the nomination. Tim and Ray, I think I just put their names.
Target, a great way.
Okay.
Are we doing one or two? It really doesn't say anything.
It's true, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Right.
Just one?
Yep.
So
Okay, I appear not to have any competition, so I guess I can declare myself elected. If I can continue on. So the new chair can next person, the list is treasurer. Do I hear nominations for treasurer?
I'd like to nominate. Oh, you go.
Clive, I was going to say.
This was just appeared.
Oh, oh dear. Clive, are you happy to accept the nomination?
we'll interpret that as yes.
Yes, I was agreeing.
All right, thank you. Declare treasurer Clive re-elected. Now looking for the secretary nominations. Secretary nominations or nomination.
I'm happy to nominate Christopher.
Thank you, John. Is there any competition for Christopher?
Okay, I will accept that.
Duly elected. Thank you. Now, the new positions talk about is, as was mentioned in emails from Christopher and me, is a director to the National Council. And I'm pleased to say that John Evershank is nominated for that role. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had anybody to consider.
What does the
This is
role
the-
entail, exactly? What does the role entail, exactly?
It's it's the National Council. So previously, the National Council, we had 3 people elected. Now it's just a single one.
Okay.
And because our structure is now a company, they're called directors.
Got it.
And they have certain legal responsibilities.
Yeah.
But basically, it's the same sort of thing as attend meetings via Zoom.
Yeah.
Or a year or something like that. At least there'd probably be more than that. And sort of be the Tasmanian representative on the National Council.
Okay, very good.
And yeah, this is because it's official, because it has to be part of that
Structure.
that structure, that company structure.
Yeah.
That's why we had to have nominations in writing at 7 days ago. And
Yeah, no,
okay,
good. Yeah.
so luckily we did have one.
Yes, thank you, John. So, look forward to hope you enjoy it, John. Okay, so now general committee members. So, what happens now?
Yes, so I think last time we just asked who wants to be on the committee. People put up their hands and then we said, well, let's have that number then.
Yes, we do. There's a democratic way to proceed, really, isn't
So
it?
should we describe what being on the committee involved?
Oh, no, you can scroll, bring up the committee role. I do like people to help with the bits and pieces there. I think that's what we've already done. And so I'm going to say straight out, John, are you happy to continue being the meeting setup person?
Yeah, with Zoom do.
Zoom do.
Zoom and do.
Charles, you keep on being the Facebook person? And who's handling events?
Nobody.
Nobody. Basically, people have helped out when they
I'm happy to handle southern events. We could get a nomination for northern events. The idea.
Help with it.
I'm happy to continue with website. Albeit I haven't for the last couple of months, but I've had really good responses. I'd like Indigo asked me to go and give them a talk about electric car. Wouldn't have been there. My reading article was on the website.
And so if anybody else wanted to help with website content, the more the merrier. It's reasonably simple to do once you get the hang of it. It's and I'll teach you, John, for the events point of view too. Yeah, if you have something you'd like to put up. So John's mainly been doing things that he's noticed in the news. But you could, if you wanted to take it on board, do interviews with people in the club or businesses or anything like that. So any sort of content would be good.
okay.
Last year we had John Clark. John Clark's been sick lately, so he's not here tonight.
Otherwise, happily co-op to be present. Julie, yes. Julie.
I feel like I've been a bit of a seat warmer, but I'm happy to do some of the bits that I've been doing, you know, things like marketing stuff and design bits. I can't really fit any more in than that, but you know, if you still want me on the committee, I can do that, but I don't have to be on the committee to do that.
Well, I'd like you very much to be on the committee, Julie. So
Okay.
I'm going to ask if you would like to be before you spoke anyway. So that's great. So thank you very much. We're all very happy to have Julie on the committee, aren't we? Just look at all those banners you did in the posters and things, Julie. They're a lovely legacy for you to be very proud of. And last but definitely not least is Vice Chair.
There's another last.
Guest speakers.
Yeah.
Well, come to that.
Okay.
Vice Chair, I'm not able to attend all the meetings. That's partly why I was would have been happy for somebody to take on the role, but I've asked the Vice Chair to be on the list because Charles and I discussed this, and he will step up for me when I'm not around, and therefore we practically into the Vice Chair. So I know Charles is happy to do that. So everybody else happy with that?
Yes.
Thank you. Now, I did say I was leaving guest speakers because we didn't have anybody else, or nobody was doing it for the last year. And then sort of been people just making suggestions, and it's not difficult sometimes to get everything to work out. So if somebody does come, put their hand up for it, or we just keep on everybody, if they see somebody or something, let us know. So I'm sort of open to suggestions, really.
Yes, ideally somebody would think of guest speakers, take those suggestions, because people are good at giving suggestions, but they're not good at following them up themselves.
Yeah.
And so somebody to suggest it to, who could then put them down on the list and go on ahead and try and find out whether people. So for instance, no, that's not a good for instance. Yep. I'll speak at once.
Oh, okay,
I'll put my hand up for it.
okay, John, thank you. Now that means there are 5 people by my count.
Fine, that's right.
So therefore we need to resolve.
Oh, hang on. And so John, oh, hang on.
John's dubbing up.
John's a director.
John's director and guest speakers and southern events.
So John then isn't a general committee because he's director.
Okay. He's on the list for events then.
Yeah, he's a director,
Mm.
which means he's not part of the, because we've got to pick a number of people for general committee members, and that excludes the director. Because you've got chair plus treasurer plus secretary plus director plus general committee members. So that number of general committee is what we have to decide.
Okay, so that's 4
So that'll be 4.
then.
Which
So,
means if we go back up to here, then we need to say if somebody proposes that we have 4.
Penny,
I'll propose that we have general committee members for the coming.
Penny picked it to the post.
Oh, all right.
I'm going to get everybody's name in the minutes. My goal. Penny wants to propose that we elect 4 general committee members for the coming year, and their roles will be as discussed. Okay. Which can second it.
I meant to second it.
Arrange what that motion carries in. We all approve that motion, please. This is the Zoom approval.
See if they're away. Rose is.
Rose is keeping very still too.
I'm seeing Rose blink.
It's a bit sunny as well. So I think we should all congratulate everybody else. You're all very cozy with you at the moment, isn't it? Okay, so the last matter then is financial limitation. What's that? Clive is proposing something?
We haven't done this before,
Mhm.
but Penny and I decided, she's not forgotten, that it would be a good idea to limit how much our treasurer is authorised to spend without going back to the committee. And so we decided, well, maybe we'll put this in, ask Clive, he hasn't commented on it, so I assume he must think it's okay. Which means that us as an AGM giving Clive permission to spend a certain amount, and if an amount that he wants to spend goes above that, then he needs to talk to the committee and get a majority of the committee to rule yes.
So Clive.
Yes, in practice, it hasn't worked that way. In practice, people have come to me and said, hey, can we spend this? So the committee has been asking my permission, which is fine. Yeah, I think we should keep it under $1 million.
What about 5?
No, okay, but no, getting away from being serious. I do often get asked, and I've no criticism implied, but it's more often I get a thing. Oh, can I be reimbursed for an expense, please? Where I didn't actually always know that expense was being incurred in advance. Often, and in fact, usually I do. But so it may be that we need to actually say that members cannot spend more than an authorized amount without consulting the treasurer, and indeed also that the treasurer should not spend more than agreed amounts. Now, it's pretty lumpy. So if we get something like AgFest, I mean, I guess really boils down to the fact that the committee should agree on whether we're doing AgFest or not, because it's $3 or $4 grand, right? Plus other stuff which is implied in that expense, even if it's not just the fee to rural youth. So I would think if you're talking about small amounts to be spent by people in general, it probably should start asking if it's above I don't know, $100 even. And even then it depends on what it is. It needs to be something legitimately for AEVA. If it's for the treasurer's discretion, that I can spend it or approve it or whatever without asking the committee, probably something like 1,000, maybe a bit more, but not much. And anything much over that, we really should consult. I mean, that's $1,000 is 20% of the budget for the year, roughly. So it's a pretty big chunk.
I'm going to suggest 500, Clive.
Okay, yeah, I wouldn't argue.
Yeah, that nobody can seek reimbursement. They have to seek permission to incur the expense, because at the moment we've got what, $388. So somebody could say, I've just done this for AEVA, reimburse me, and they could.
Blow the budget.
Yep.
So
you're saying everything needs
a
to
person
be
cannot incur an expense on behalf of AEVA without discussing it with the treasurer first.
without pre-approval.
They're pre-approved.
So is it always a treasurer or could it be the committee?
But it should be the committee normally.
Yeah, I would have thought committee would be better. I like the idea of having a dollar limit. I like the idea of a $50 limit that you can incur an expense up to $50 and then come and seek forgiveness.
Well,
So-
assuming
As somebody who does a lot of
Should be.
expenses.
yeah, would just should define for the purposes of promoting AEVA branch or something like that.
Yeah, legitimate AEVA purposes.
Yeah, legitimate purpose.
I mean,
Well, I mean, the risk is if you incur an expense and somebody says, "Oh, come on, you got to be joking," you just don't get it back.
Yeah,
And if there's a $50 limit, then okay, so people could risk up to $50 if they think they're spending something that's a bit dodgy.
that's sort of yeah.
that's how I see it.
That
Sorry. I didn't word that down.
potentially stops any silliness. Not that we're silly here, but
Well, there hasn't been a lot of silliness. Hasn't been a problem, but I approve of the initiative to
governance principle. Yeah.
yeah.
Is this
Could
kind
I
of
suggest
effective?
that Clive could seek permission or a budget for a major event, so that it's not pardon me, it's not transactional. For example, for something like AgFest, as a committee, we would endorse a level of expenditure for that event that might be above this transactional limit.
Because yes, I've said a transaction there. You can always divide things up into separate transactions.
That's
But, you
Well, if
know,
we're going to approve something like AgFest, then we actually see the proposal
Yes.
actually plays it all out. And one year we decided, I see it got you, Shane. One year we decided to do this, and one year we decided to do more, didn't we? Once we saw what we were doing and how people were going to be involved. So I mean, it's almost if that is approved.
So that's all pre-approved.
Yes.
yes.
Now, better give Shane a call.
My memory of the process has always been that larger expenses are floated not only with the committee but with a AgFest meeting, and nothing's ever happened that wasn't put on the table and looked at and agreed to. So yes, I agree with those limits, but we clearly don't have a problem that has to be fixed.
yeah. Okay. There's a process, but albeit not formalised.
So are we saying, if we use the word in there, not exceeding $50 for any one transaction which has not received prior approval? Is that really what we're getting at?
Oh, you just, the second thing there, the second sentence is the prior approval. So amounts above this value will require authorisation. So you can pre-authorise.
Yeah, fair enough.
And Clive was saying it shouldn't be just the treasurer, it should be a member.
Yes, and so I'm wondering whether we do this one plus another one separate to do with general members that members will need.
Okay, well, we better take what word in there.
Yes, so pre-approval is required for any member.
Incurring expenses on behalf of AgFest.
So we want to do that. So anything, or do we want to eliminate? So not required, well, or as Clive says, we just do it.
Anything.
Yep.
Get pre-approved.
Okay, so I said pre-approval is required for any member incurring expenses on behalf of AEVA Tas. Pre-approval by the committee or by the treasurer, I assume, because then the treasurer to pay it has to have authorisation from the branch committee.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then we have
Okay.
the second one that says the treasurer can't authorise anything about $50, for example, $100. That becomes the second sentence, second part of that thing.
I think the default situation, I haven't read the rules, but normally the default is that all payments are authorised by the committee. So if we're wanting to allow someone to spend $50, we have to word that a person is authorised to spend an amount not exceeding $50 without special.
There's no such thing in our constitution now, which is one reason why I put this in, because there was in the previous constitution, but not in this one. So you're saying to change this one?
Well, if we're saying we've got the required pre-approval
Yep.
for members, and then the treasurer needs some guidance, and the guidance is the treasurer can basically give the pre-approval, but up to $50 or $100. Or the treasurer can spend it himself or herself if necessary, up to that limit. Anything above that has to come to the branch committee and then even indeed to the whole meeting.
Yeah, I don't think you need anything else than what we've written, right?
The
No,
pre-approval, are you saying that's
So pre-approval, but if it's, so if I say I want to spend $1,000, $900, and we've got the $1,000 for Clive, then I say $900, Clive says, yes, go ahead, and then he pays me, and that's his $900. Whereas if I say $1,000, 1,100, he says, yes, go ahead, but he needs to get approval by the majority of the branch committee before he pays. So before he's
so what wording are we going to have there?
So I think that wording's fine for that one. And then we have a separate one for members. So that one's the one for the treasurer.
So what dollar value are we putting in?
Yeah, that's right. So Clive said 1,000. My idea was 1,000. You said 500 in advance or something.
750.
Anybody have any particular opinions? I was saying 1,000 because I've seen some of the transactions come through lately. So some idea.
Are they transactions that have already been meeting because of the significant event?
Yes. Yes, if they have been so far, yes. And so this would basically formalise that.
Shane?
I reckon we can trust Clive with 1,000, can't we?
But can you trust the next treasurer?
Well, that'll be an issue for another day.
No, these matters need to be completely neutral, objective, and it protects the incumbents as well.
Just check the balances.
Yeah, I'm happy to go with 500. I'm not, I suggested 1,000 because I was throwing darts, not because I had a good strong rationale. I think we don't have that many lumps over 500 that are that haven't already had some consideration. I mean, I'm thinking of what have we spent lately? Well, it was the sign writing for the roof of the tent. Well, we went through that very thoroughly before we spent it. There was the grass for AgFest. So I think the AgFest committee considered that before it was decided. Other than that, it's been AgFest fees, some costs associated with the Hobart show, but not very many things as a lump individually to go over 500.
So, now do what you want. A mover and a seconder?
Yes.
Okay. Clive, you happy to be the mover? And Tim O'Loughlin, you happy to be the seconder?
I'm very happy to do it.
And the same person for both.
Both?
Ooh, yes.
Christopher will tidy them up at the appropriate time, but the
Sure.
idea is that we've got the members needing pre-approval and a cap of 500 for the treasurer. Everybody in support? Thank you very much. And that would appear to be the end of our agenda. Which is taking us longer than usual, my goodness. 19:45. Okay, I declare the meeting closed and thank you. Anybody wants to stand up for a moment, leave the room or get a cup of tea. Then we'll start the next general meeting. Straight down in the now, that's all. All right. I think, sorry, I think you know that this afternoon.
Yes.
Do my research for the new section of
Well, that was
that.
much breakfast.
Yep.
Was going to ask about, you never have anything prep for it?
John.
So should we do 2 recordings or one? Have a break in the middle and
Let's
edit out?
do,
Yeah, just
What do you usually do?
we haven't done
You
it.
edit out this bit.
I think 2 recordings.
Yeah,
Two recordings, yeah.